Hi, welcome to the Russ and Vince Courtside Podcast. I'm your host, Vince. Before we go into the video, please hit that like and subscribe button down below if you enjoy our videos. Let's get right into it. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Russ and Vince Courtside Podcast. Once again, I am your host, Vince here. Nice to see you. Thank you again for tuning in today's episode. We're going to be covering today's matchup. Golden State Warriors go up against the Minnesota Timberwolves for Game 2 in Minnesota. Great response game today for the Timberwolves. Unfortunately, the Steph Curry-less Warriors were not quite able to steal another game to take it back to Golden State 2-0. So we find ourselves tied 1-1. Let's get it right to the recap of this game. All righty. So as we take a look at the box score here, as you can see, quarter by quarter, starting out this game, the Minnesota Timberwolves most certainly started out the tone a lot better in response to game one. Outside of the beginning of the second half, quote unquote, from Chris Finch, he felt like they took care of the ball a lot better after taking some sloppy turnovers. They had much better spacing and they were able to get much better looks, even ones that didn't go down. So the focus for today's game, it seems, is in terms of the theme for the Minnesota Timberwolves in response to game one, has to definitely do with defensive pressure. Going as far as at the end of the game, uh, post meeting with Anthony Edwards, he was able to explain what their focus for game two was after the lackluster performance for game one. He primarily stated that it was a lack of defensive pressure, and we wanted to change that moving forward into game two. So, as we saw for game one or game two in this case, quarter one, you can see automatically the Minnesota Timberwolves were starting out a lot better. They held the Golden State Warriors to just 15 points while scoring 29 points, and they were able to end the half 56-39, going up by 17 points into the halftime. During that time frame, some of the key things that I was able to notice, Julius Randle had definitely started this game on a mission and started out very hot. He had 16 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. And then Jaden McDaniels also came in with a plus 17 with great defensive presence on some of the key players like Jimmy Butler, as well as some of the other perimeter players that were playing, like Brandon in this case. He was able to finish the first half with 10 points, 1 steal, and 3 blocks. On the other side, for the Golden State Warriors, not as exactly what you would have hoped, right? Jimmy Butler, you would hope because Steph Curry was not going to be playing this game, he would take a little bit more responsibility on the offensive end. Well, unfortunately, he didn't do much. In the first half, he only had 6 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. And then Draymond himself only had 5 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists. As we look at the box score here, in terms of what they ended the first half and then ended the rest of the game with, Draymond only contributed 4 more points, but didn't really do much from there. He ended the game with a -3, and then for Jimmy Butler, he did at least score 11 more points in that second half to finish with 17. He did end up getting 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, but for the most part, his presence wasn't necessarily made there. And then I would say, if anything, it was really the bench for the Warriors that kind of kept them in this one. As for the Minnesota Timberwolves, like I said, it was a Julius Randle show. He ended up finishing the game with 24 points, 11 rebounds, or been part 11 assists, 7 rebounds, and was a plus 17 in the plus minus. But again, all around great performance from all the Timberwolves key players. And that's really the best way I could say for that one. Now, the thing that I want to go into here is what was the key factors for the Timberwolves getting this win? Now, obviously, we talked about the defensive lack that they had in that game one. Didn't really show up, didn't really do much. In fact, it was very disappointing. After what they did to the Lakers in 5 games, a lot of us had a lot of high hopes thinking that the Wolves were going to take that momentum into game one and maybe even embarrass the Warriors. Well, obviously, that was not what happened. Steph Curry was able to come out hot in that first game, 13 points in 13 minutes. And one would argue, without that injury, if obviously Steph was playing in this game, who knows what the results would be. But unfortunately, he is hurt. Warriors got to play with who they got, just like the other teams in this league right now that are still in the playoffs. You got to deal with it. But I will say that in terms of the Warriors, they are still happy to at least get one game out of the two to go back home to Golden State. In terms of the key factors here, what I wanted to pay closer attention to in this case, were some of the changes that we were able to see from game one to game two. If we look close enough in the team stats, what we'll see here that really kind of made more sense for me in terms of what happened. Let's look at the field goal percentage. Field goal percentage, the Warriors were at 44%. We'll round up to 45%. Wolves were at 50%. That's not too much of a discrepancy. So, that's okay. The biggest difference is this right here, 3 points. 3 points and 3 point percentage. So without Steph Curry, the Warriors managed to only make 9 3 pointers out of 32. They ended up shooting 28% compared to the Wolves, who made 16 threes out of 37 and finished the game at 43%. Now, the thing that was very compelling and interesting to me in terms of this is ever since game one against the Lakers, the Timberwolves have only been shooting 25% from three. They were 44 for 173 prior to this game. So you had to think that at some point regression was going to take a factor for the Wolves, and it certainly did in this game. Outside of that, another key factor that I looked at compared to last game is right here in the assist margin. They had plus 10 on the assist margin at 33 assists compared to the Warriors 23. This is important because in game one, the Wolves only managed to have, I believe, roughly 15 assists. That's not good enough. What that tells you is people were kind of doing more ISO, one-on-one play compared to getting open looks and generating better looks by cut screens, and just again better spacing, like Chris Finch had mentioned that they needed to focus on. Another key factor here that led to the Timberwolves win has to do in the turnover margins. Outside of the third quarter, when the Warriors had actually gone on a run and made some people nervous, but not me, the Wolves were able to really win this game by taking good care of the ball. You can't win many games in this league, especially in the playoffs, if you're going to give up 20 turnovers compared to just 13. Luckily, it didn't really lead to that many fast break points, but they were still momentum killers for the Warriors. And then lastly, here, a good thing that I wanted to bring up here, we talked a lot about how the Timberwolves have that size and they need to use that size to their advantage. Well, in this game, they did a lot better job making an emphasis on taking ownership of putting pressure on the paint. Too many times it seemed like in that last game, they weren't really pushing the envelope in terms of um, really, I would say, utilizing their advantages to their best, which again is that size. They wanted to kind of hunt for jump shots and were waiting for calls that weren't there. This game, they just took it over, and it really was again led by Julius Randle. He had really started this off in the right direction. Now, Warriors without Curry. Let's talk about it. This first game alone didn't really look that good. This was definitely a game that, again, the first game without Curry, some people still predicted that the Warriors were going to win this game, even without Curry, primarily because since the Warriors got Jimmy Butler, they have had a lot better record in this case without Steph Curry, or at least without Steph Curry on the floor. Well, in this particular game, or at least in this matchup, we can see that without Curry, not the best. You could also say that because this is a game of series, and in a game of series, there's always adjustments that take place. The better team won this game that made the adjustments based off of the last game. There's not many adjustments that you can look for the Warriors in this case after game one because of how dominant they were. So in this case, the Timberwolves really did need to respond, and they definitely showed up. Real quick, too, I just want to talk about this in case you guys didn't catch the game. Unfortunately, Anthony Edwards did go down for just a short period of time, which is good. He got stepped on by one of the Warrior players, Jackson Davis. It was a complete accident, but as he was going up for a layup, he got stepped on, unfortunately, and it looked very bad to the point where you were really concerned. But he was able to gut it out. Call it that youth, being 23. I wish I could relate to that. Definitely not these days. But he was able to gut it out, and he definitely did his best to still, lead his team, at least in the second half, where he still finished the box score pretty well with 20 points and did some really good rebounding with 9 rebounds to go with a good amount of assists as well. But what I want to pay attention to with this injury is I want to see if this is something that is going to prevent the Timberwolves moving forward from being able to fully dominate and take advantage of these Curryless games coming up. You got 2 more games going back to Golden State. I'm sure that they would love to get both of them in this case. And I would actually recommend that you try to get both of them, considering Steph Curry is projected to possibly come back by game 5. So if you can steal one of those games, you're definitely on the right track. Next up here, let's talk about predictions, right? Obviously, game 1, heavily in the Warriors' favor, right? Game 2, great response by the Timberwolves. So, what do we predict is going to happen for game 3? It's easy to say the Timberwolves are going to take game 3 at this point because of how dominant they were able to pull away from the Warriors, especially late, to see how lackadaisical a lot of the Warriors starters, including Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, looked. But in this case, I actually feel like game 3 is going to go to the Warriors. The reason why I feel like this is because Steve Kerr, I put a lot of respect on as a head coach. Even though he is playing without Steph Curry, or at least coaching without Steph Curry, beg my pardon, he's really good at game by game adjustments. I have no doubt in my mind that between now and game 3, he's going to have a good look at the film. He's going to take a look at those turnovers. He's going to take a look at the kind of threes that they generated to see what kind of better threes that they can generate moving forward so that you can get players like a Buddy Hield better looks, Brandon better looks. And even if it's not from the three, just getting more better movement, because there were definitely times where the Warriors looked and seemed like they didn't exactly know what they were doing. Their offense wasn't set up the right way at times. It just looked really sloppy. So I'm sure there's going to be some specific adjustments that Steve Kerr is going to want to make. And the good news is he's going to have at least till Saturday to figure it out. Um, Bad news is, again, you're playing without Steph Curry to lead the way. So I do think that game 3 is going to go to the Warriors. They're going to go up 2-1. But as far as game 4, I do think that that is going to be a game that the Timberwolves will take. I think that by the time we get to Minnesota, it's going to be 2-2. Warriors are going to reclaim home court advantage after the Golden State Warriors took game advantage in game 1. From there, that's when things get interesting for game 5. We'll talk about that another time. But overall, I just thought that this was a really good game. I thought this was a game where, again, a message was clearly needed to be met from the very beginning. And the Wolves definitely responded the way that you would hope to see. Something that I am very curious to kind of see moving forward, especially with Steph Curry being out for game 3 and 4. And because we were able to finally get an appearance from this particular player on the Warriors, that we kind of were wondering, why is he not playing? What's going on? I'm curious to see what's going to be happening with Mr. Jonathan Kuminga. Now, Jonathan Kuminga was the one who propelled the Warriors after being down by 20 plus points at one point to only being down as low as 7 points. That was Jonathan Kuminga. Okay. What I mean by this is he actually not only got some run in this game, right? But he actually looked very good. There were lots of times that he was driving to the bucket. He was getting really good looks. There was even a play that he dunked and yammed on, I believe, Rudy Gobert in the third quarter during this run. And you could see him really taking the momentum away from the Timberwolves just before Chris Finch had called a timeout to stop that momentum and reclaim it right back after. Right. And a lot of that had to do with really good defensive pressure, but he also was heavily within the offense. And Kaminga showed up a lot better in this game. Another thing that I would like to say that kind of happened in this game that really worked, at least in the Wolves' favor, this was a game where the Warriors played 14 players, right? They played 14 players. Don't pay attention too much to the Timberwolves stat sheet because a lot of these players didn't actually play in the game. They were really 8 deep, okay? But the Warriors, throughout the remainder in the entire game, they had played up to about 13, 14 players that generated up to 41 points in bench scoring. Well, luckily, because of the play of Nickeil Alexander-Walker in this game, hitting 20 points, going +4. And then also you had Naz Reid who contributed with 11 points. And then the rest had showed up. They were able to balance out the bench scoring 40-41. That could have been real trouble because what we saw in game 1, their bench didn't really do much. And that was one of the reasons why the Wolves were not able to um, really answer some of the plays that the Warriors were making in that game 1. Whereas the Wolves, not only their starters weren't showing up, but their bench wasn't showing up at home either. Outside of that, you could also see by the second half, in order for the Wolves to get back after that run that the Warriors went on, they had to make timely buckets. There were multiple times where they made timely 3-point shots. They got timely buckets to the point where they were able to establish a much bigger lead going into that fourth quarter, to the point where the Warriors were really not going to have any other choice to be able to come back. But really, overall, you guys, this was a great game to watch. Obviously, if you're a Wolves fan, but even if you're a Warriors fan, I'm not entirely concerned. Okay, you guys have a lot of championship pedigree. You guys already know this. I don't think that you guys should have anything to be concerned for the most part. Let's really see what this team looks like by game 2 in Golden State. Okay. One more thing I want to bring to attention here, though, before we do, kick off this episode, that's a little bit something to kind of pay close attention to is Draymond Green. Draymond Green, for whatever reason, just can never seem to be able to stay out of the mix. I don't know what it is, but he just can't help himself. Earlier in the first quarter, or at least in the first half, Draymond was unfortunately able to pick up yet another technical foul. The reason why this is a problem is because now that he's picked up 5 technicals, he now is only 2 technicals away from being suspended. The reason why this is a problem is if the Warriors are looking to take and make a deep run, Draymond, if he's in jeopardy of getting suspended, whether that is in this series or if you do advance in the next series, you guys are looking at a 2016 situation all over again. If you don't recall, Draymond Green had so many technical fouls and flagrant fouls in that playoff series, beg my pardon, that playoff season, that he ended up getting suspended for game 5 or game 6. I believe it was game 6. Sorry, buddy, scared me. Game 6 of the finals, which led to the Cavaliers ended up coming back 3-1 to take that championship. Now, because of that, it's one of those things where you got to wonder, is this one of those situations where you love and you hate Draymond, especially if he's on your team, but if he can't seem to keep his emotions in check, especially in the times and the moments that matter the most, he might cost you again. So let's kind of pay close attention, because whether if it's 2 more technicals or 2 more flagrant fouls, he's 2 away from being suspended. Outside of that, you guys, again, I'm your host Vince here with all things NBA. Even though the Lakers are not playing, we're here to talk about everything that has to do with the basketball. We love basketball here. Unfortunately, our boy Russ couldn't make it to today's episode, but I know that he is still somewhere chanting Warriors in 4, even though crazy hot take for sure. I personally got Wolves in 6. We'll see if I'm right. We'll see if I'm wrong. But once again, you guys, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you're not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button down below. If you enjoy the video, go ahead and hit that like as well. And if you have other people around that you do feel like would enjoy our content, go ahead and share this with them. I appreciate your time. You guys stay blessed.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Russ and Vince Courtside Podcast, where we bring you the hottest NBA moments, discussions, and everything in between. If you like today's show, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a Courtside Podcast again.